I'm Jared.
I'm Brandon.
And this is another edition of the Heel to the Face podcast. News coming down that WrestleMania could potentially be 2 nights next year. And I know a lot of people say that they can give a million reasons for something. But when it comes to this cause, I may be able to give you a ton of reasons why this is not a good decision when it comes to the fans' perspective. We'll talk that all out and so much more as the Heel to the Face podcast starts right now.
Fans celebrate with me from Rome to Rochester.
Bad luck seems to be my middle name. They might as well tag me up with my buddies from Syracuse.
So another edition of the Heel to the Face podcast is here. You can follow me at KRock Jared. You can follow Brandon at Icebreaker21. But most importantly, follow the show at Heel to the Face. We are heading into All Out Weekend, AEW's big weekend, a.k.a. CM Punk's big return to the world of professional wrestling, something we never thought we would see.
And the reported debut of one Bryan Danielson as well.
And the reported debut of Bryan Danielson. But here's the thing. It's always going to be a debut of somebody in the world of AEW. We've talked that before, and we could probably talk it again. And that's.
But there's two names that I was reading recently that I don't think is going. They're going to AEW anytime soon or ever. And I'm going to throw two names at you, and I think one might surprise you. Charlotte Flair, zero chance she'll ever go to AEW. That's according to her father, Ric Flair, who did an interview with Renee Paquette. And they asked the question, hey, any chance that Charlotte ever goes to anywhere besides WWE? And he said zero chance.
Was that the interview that was that the oral sessions? Because I don't remember her talking really about going to AEW at all during that. That was Ric Flair's response.
Yeah. That was
okay, because I was there. I guess I was just too busy taking pictures and being the allure of being so close to Charlotte.
One other name as well, Kurt Angle. Kurt Angle has been offered many, many contracts, in his words, from Tony Khan in AEW. And he says, for personal reasons, I will not be, I'll paraphrase this, he will not be, pursuing AEW at this time.
But, it's funny you bring up Charlotte Flair. And I was talking to, as we just start off the show, about the debut of Bryan Danielson or Daniel Bryan or whatever, and how it's always the debut of somebody because that's AEW's MO is the big debut. And Impact's been that lately, I guess, the last couple of years is who's coming here? Who's going to be our big debut? Who is it going to be that's released from WWE, etc. But I want to say this much when it comes to Charlotte Flair, and a lot of people saying because, she could make her way to AEW. One thing out there that I think is really dumb, and that was this week, the Nia Jax Charlotte Flair match on Raw went a little rough. Nia Jax was a little rough with Charlotte Flair.
Wait. A little rough. She's always rough. She's like what's the word? Stiff. She's very stiff in the ring. And I don't think a lot of people like working with Nia Jax because and the biggest thing, and I've listened to so many wrestlers talk over the years, when I'm in the ring with somebody, these wrestlers say, I want to get out of the ring the same shape I was in when I started the match. And the problem is, Nia hurts people. That's the problem. And that's Nia. I don't know how Nia can still win matches nonetheless against Charlotte Flair. And that one spot that really ticked Charlotte off is she landed on her back of her neck. Like, come on. Like, you've been wrestling for how long, Nia? And you should be safer. Like, that's not hard.
A lot of people were saying that could potentially be vendetta against her father, Ric Flair. A lot of people thought that John Cena was going to win against Roman Reigns as vendetta against Ric Flair, meaning to get rid of his record. And I just want to say, especially too, if you saw Ric Flair come out and pretty much praise his time in WWE and everybody in WWE at the big NWA show over the weekend, in which saw Nick Aldis lose his championship of like 1,700 days to one Trevor Murdoch. But regardless, Ric Flair...
Trevor Murdoch, that's a name I haven't heard in a while.
Ric Flair was there, and Ric Flair pretty much spent the whole time on NWA's dollar praising the WWE. And I guess I don't understand why anyone thinks that WWE has this vendetta against Ric Flair.
They don't. It's
because he asked
true.
For his release.
There's zero substance behind that. Even Ric Flair, also on that podcast with Renee, also said, he jokingly said, yeah, why would Charlotte be champion again after I just left if there was heat on her because of me leaving?
Gotcha. Yeah. Oh, okay. That's where we were getting confused. I thought you were telling me that Charlotte Flair was asked a question about going to AEW, and I was like, I was at that Charlotte Flair interview with Renee.
No, Rick
Flair.
Yeah, Rick
was
asked that,
I don't think that there is, and more importantly, Rick is how old and
72.
How many years has he given to WWE?
His whole life.
Listen, I understand Vince McMahon is a more petty man than other people even realize, maybe even more petty than we think. But I would have to say that would be the next level of low to think that Ric Flair would get any sort of distreatment because he asked for his release after having been with WWE off and on for many. First up, it's not the first time he's been released. I understand if you were like mad at him in 1992 because he went back to WCW or whatever, but this is like in an age now where it's like, I guess you're just going to be mad at everybody all the time for literally not currently being in your company at this exact moment.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
Yeah, there's no there should be no hard feelings against Ric Flair.
There isn't. He literally asked Vince nicely, and Vince said, "Yeah, sure, cool, all right." That was it. That's literally how it went down. Like Ric's already come out and said that he left on good terms. He asked nicely, and Vince said, "Yeah, you're good. See you later."
Yeah, that would be like being upset at like a police officer if you're the chief that at 99 years old, after having not retired like 100 years before they were supposed to, hey, you think I could retire? And be like, oh, you're gonna leave us shorthanded? Oh, how are we gonna cover your hours? God, why you leave? Like he's old. He should have retired a long time ago.
Yeah.
So the fact that he's leaving WWE, regardless of him leaving or coming back or leaving again, he's at an age now where I think he should be able to come and go as he pleases, and there should be no hard feelings. So it'd be ridiculous if there was.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, there's no substantial information out there that says, oh yeah, Rick pissed off Vince. That's not true. Well, speaking of Vince being pissed off, I don't know if you heard this, but there was multiple rewrites, and apparently lots of scripts that were ripped to shreds by Vince up to Monday Night Raw this past week. So obviously I don't know about you, but that kind of makes me think that maybe this whole thing with AEW kicking some ass right now is getting to Vince a little bit.
Well, there is also the news that Vince McMahon and Bruce Pritchard apparently are going to be the ones behind NXT come September the 14th.
Yeah, and I don't like that idea. I don't mind Bruce Pritchard, but I think Vince should keep his hands away from it. I trust Bruce Pritchard. Bruce Pritchard has a good eye for the product. He's good. Vince, I feel like in a lot of cases he's out of touch. The perfect combination is you bring in Bruce Pritchard, you keep Triple H or Hunter, everybody calls him, or Shawn Michaels. Keep those guys there.
I guess, and my question is, what is the new idea behind the NXT? First off, I want to say the logo. I know a lot of people diss on the logo. I don't hate the logo. I don't know what they're to hate. It's a logo.
Well, here's the thing. The internet wrestling community complains about everything. They complain about change. Stop complaining about it.
You knew a change was coming.
It's not a bad logo.
I mean, I've seen worse logos. There's really not much to it. It's just 3 letters and some colors.
And here's the thing: you're the logo guy. You notice these aesthetics and things like that. So I'm with you. I don't think there's an issue with it. I think the logo's cool. I think what NXT is going to be going forward is literally I think they're trying to distance themselves. And this is just me saying this. This isn't anything I'm reporting out there or anything that's been reported out there. My take is they're going to distance themselves eventually from the indies. They want all this homegrown, like their own power plant of talent. That's how I see it. And I know people were like, well, Samoa Joe's champion. I get that. He's on the indies. I think they're going to start this, and then they're going to have the guys like the Carmelo Hayeses eventually move their way up.
Why is that better? Or I don't really understand it from WWE's perspective.
I don't get it either.
Either way, here's the thing. They're going after young talent. And the idea is the guys from the indies are supposed to be young talent. It's not, I get it that you're trying to be the developmental brand for WWE. So even if you've got an indie guy, he's still going to be a developmental talent for WWE. So if you bring in a guy from an independent company or not an independent company, either way, you're going to mold them. I mean, a good example, a lot of guys they bring in, they end up retooling them themselves, even if they're indie. I mean, Bryan Danielson becomes Daniel Bryan under NXT.
A lot of people don't realize this, but in the beginning of Seth Rollins' tenure in WWE, he was a hot commodity in the independent circuit. Mm-hmm. So he came in, and this is all reported. You guys can check it out. He bumped
Tyler Black.
He bumped heads with a lot of coaches because he was set in his ways from the indies, and Terry Taylor, amongst others, said, no, you're going to do it this way.
But the good news about having them from the indies is that they know how to wrestle. That is probably
you just have to refine certain things.
So whether you take Tyler Black and you repackage him to Seth Rollins, the good news is you just repackage him. He's already got the wrestling background. You take this other guy, he's got neither the package nor the wrestling. If you take a football player, baseball player, hockey player, whatever, you got to teach him how to wrestle and give him the package. An indie guy, you just got to give him the package.
Unless it's Gabe Steveson. the Olympian. After his gold medal performance, he's getting a lot of offers. Not only obviously WWE, because they already showcased him at SummerSlam. You were there.
Yeah.
But he's also getting offers. I think Dana White's looking at him. I think a lot of these different fight organizations are looking at him. He's a hot commodity.
I just don't know why you're going to close yourself off to one avenue. If you want to say, we want to bring in guys from here, bring in guys from there, bring in guys from everywhere, but don't say we want to bring in less guys from here.
You know what?
Bring in both. Bring in non-indie guys and indie guys.
You know what trend I would like to see happen is guys like Matt Riddle, who started in MMA, ran its course in MMA, and now he's in WWE, and he still has that background where he can, the thing you have to do, obviously, is you got to make sure you don't hit them completely like you're actual in a real fight, but you can refine their skills. And the nice thing about it, you got Shayna Baszler, who has that background as well. You don't have to teach them how to do these different techniques because they've already been doing it for years and years. So for me, I think I agree with you, especially in the MMA world. Get some of those guys and girls that, maybe they've run their course. Maybe they don't want to be fighting physically like that, to that extent where they're getting their face punched in every time they fight, unless you're fighting Nia Jax, because that's, she's stiff. But I think it's cool. I think you bring in superstars like that are from that world. I've seen guys that want to do that. I mean, I wouldn't be shocked. I'm not saying it's happening, but I wouldn't be shocked someday if Conor McGregor just decides, hey, you know what? Let me go to WWE.
Interesting to see what NXT is going to look like going forward this upcoming Friday on SmackDown. Coincidentally, I wonder if this had to be coincidence. Now, I don't think WWE ever is one of these people that bows to pressure, clearly because they're going to Jacksonville. But at the same time, I wonder if it's kind of coincidental that they happen to be going to Jacksonville the weekend that AEW is nowhere near Jacksonville. They're going to be in Chicago, starting with Dynamite through Rampage, through All Out.
Obviously, it's strategic. Yeah. Come on.
Yeah, so the weekend that AEW is not even going to be, meaning they're running so many shows in Chicago that they're not even going to be there, Performance Center-wise, training or, office space-wise. They're going to, as of today, Tony Khan, the whole crew is not in Jacksonville, and they're not coming back until at least next week. They're staying in hotels. You don't see them coming back to Jacksonville for any reason.
It's 100% by design.
But either way, they are going to Jacksonville. Finn Balor, Roman Reigns, a championship. I forego that you imagine that Roman Reigns is going to retain, but are you at least looking forward to this match, thinking it's going to be good? Do you see there's any way that Roman Reigns does not retain on SmackDown?
There's zero chance of him losing. That's just how it goes. Roman Reigns is not losing. If he's going to lose his title, it's going to be at one of the big 4 pay-per-views. It's not going to be at a random television taping, so to speak. It's not happening.
So it's been announced that on October the 1st, 2021, that is a Friday night, Free the Narrative 2. That is Ethan Carter, or EC3, as you better know, one of his non-affiliated promotions, and it is going to feature the debut, or at least the return of, in the public eye since his release from WWE, Braun Strowman. Now, if you don't know what Free the Narrative is, I didn't know what it is either, but apparently, and this is the description from them, Free the Narrative is a event that is free from independent wrestling promotions. It is set to an original score and blends professional wrestling, cinema, and the harsh reality in what will become the true definition of creative freedom. So I guess it's like a cinematic match. Are all the matches cinematic? It's going to be Braun Strowman against EC3 at this event. It is going to be, I think, on pay-per-view. There is no location announced, so I guess, again, this is going to be like a movie?
Yeah, I don't know.
Storytelling? I guess it's going to be like the Boneyard match, but pay-per-view.
Okay, I guess I'll have to wait and see when it comes out.
So that is when you can see Braun Strowman next. But speaking of independence, I mentioned this last week. We didn't have time for it, but I'll bring it up this week. And that is the return of XPW Wrestling. Now, for those who might not know what XPW Wrestling was or is, it was the closest thing to ECW's answer back in about 1999. A guy named Rob Black, a very sleazy guy named Rob Black, who could give Paul Heyman a definite run for his money, a former porn director, not just in porn of anything, but in
porn guy, huh?
but bad porn, like really like violent, weird, wild, like this, not Playboy, like Hustler and much further down, not looked fondly upon even those in the porn world. His wife, porn star in the wrestling world named Lizzie Borden, kind of gives you a mix there. She's got a name that's a porn name, but it's also tied with a serial killer or a killer from back in the day.
Oh no, yeah.
So he created XPW Wrestling. He was the Paul Heyman of it, and it was essentially the answer to ECW. It was the West Coast answer to ECW, and then eventually when ECW went out in the year 2001, became the closest thing to ECW. He ran shows out of the Olympic Auditorium in California, which was a very a historic place in LA to run wrestling shows and concerts. It is the place of the famous New Jack tasing Vic Grimes and throwing him off the scaffold, trying to kill him and landing through all the tables. I saw the clip before the YouTube days and went out and bought the DVD at the Best Buy. And that shows you the height of the XPW promotion. The DVDs, the VHSs, they were sold at Best Buy.
Yeah.
They had a weekly television show that was like on, I don't know, like the LA sports networks and distributed across the country. So essentially, it was as mainstream as Ring of Honor is now. Okay. It was a national promotion. They ran shows in Philadelphia after ECW went out. Shane Douglas was their champion. Sandman was there. Sabu was there. Tommy Dreamer was there. Balls Mahoney was there. Again, New Jack was there. Other guys, Supreme, who was a king of the deathmatch at that time, he was there. Terry Funk has been there. Again, it wasn't just an independent promotion that ran a few shows out of this one specific area. Like I said, they nationally distributed DVDs. I could buy a DVD in Australia of XPW. I could buy a DVD at Best Buy here in New York of XPW.
Yeah.
Well, they are returning with the same owner and all, Rob Black, who is out of prison because he, again, has served some time. There's probably a dark side of the ring about XPW and Rob Black coming out in the near future.
Wait, what was he in jail for? You know?
I don't, but I mean...
Was he in for a while?
I don't remember what it was. I just remember that Rob Black was like, again, sleazy. Like, I think there were some issues with like his porn, having people who weren't consenting and like cutting people too hard and, just blurring the lines of what is obscenity, that whole thing. Maybe not paying some, like, again, the Paul Heyman to the nth degree, I guess you could call it, like a real gritty kind of guy that you'd imagine running like a death match kind of company.
Man, so him and Nick Cage
could be in XPW. But they are making their return, and it is going to be run by Rob Black, and it is going to be, out of all the places in the world it could be, and especially being based out of LA before, Rochester, New York. They're going to make their debut. It's going to be on Fight TV, which is essentially like the internet pay-per-view world.
Yep.
It is going to be at a decent-sized venue, the Main Street Armory, which isn't your local American Legion.
Yep, been there.
And it fits about 500, maybe even 1,000 people. So they're expecting...
Sellout.
They're expecting what I guess to be similar to what GCW has been recently. GCW has been a company that's been traveling around, obviously, under the popularity of Nick Gage, under the popularity of people like Matt Cardona coming in and winning the world title for them. So they plan on being a national company. They plan on going to places and selling out and filling buildings in New York City and Philly. But to start here in Rochester, New York, or locally in Rochester, going to be November the 7th. They currently have Willie Mack from Impact fame. He is going to be on the card, as well as a guy that I saw locally, Bill Collier, who is the current Excite champion down in the Binghamton area, who his claim to fame, I guess, currently is that he wrestled Jon Moxley on an AEW Dark Elevation one-on-one.
Nice.
He looks the part. I saw him in Excite Wrestling, and I can tell you that rarely in the world of indie wrestling do I see somebody and go, that guy could be in a ring right now with Drew McIntyre, and not one thing would look out of place. Like, there's a few guys I like. I like Jay Freddy, and I like Colin Delaney's, and I like these guys, and it's cool to see them in the WWEs of the world because you know them. But Bill Collier looks like he's already in the WWE.
So why wouldn't he be in the big show?
I mean,
I don't get it.
I mean, obviously, I don't know his journey, so I don't know exactly where he's going, what his journey has taken him, his regular life.
You would think if he's that much if he's a physical specimen, you don't think
I can
Vince would be on him?
I can say he is a physical specimen, and he is also signed for this XPW card, as well as a few other indie guys. So I'm curious to see who they will have.
So how much are tickets?
I think they start at $20, and then they go up to like $35, $45, depending if you want ringside, and they have a balcony there because it is somewhat of a decent-sized venue. It is not your local YMCA, but November the 7th, it is a Sunday night, 6 o'clock on Fight TV. All signs a free night. I should be heading out and checking out the return of XPW, and if you're not familiar with XPW, heading into it, now's a good chance to go YouTube XPW because, like I said, it had years of hourly television.
So for our listeners and viewers, how long has XPW been out?
I think 2004.
So it's been out. Wow, it's been out almost 2 decades.
99 to like 04. It disappeared.
Gotcha.
But like I said, they had a weekly television show. It was like ECW, but probably even more extreme.
Gotcha.
Than ECW. Not to 100% always death matches. They did have some death matches, but like the ECW quality. It's not this death match stuff where you like look and it's like in someone's backyard. It was a ticketed event in a real arena. Cool. That kind of thing.
Nice.
So they are making their return to Rochester, which I think is pretty cool, November the 7th. Locally, 2CW Wrestling is coming back at the end of this month after being gone for a couple 5 years now. Unfortunately, I got told that the Godfather, who was going to be in Binghamton, and then he was going to be the Papa Shango character in Syracuse, because he'll be filming an episode of WWE's Most Wanted Treasures that day, cannot attend.
Yes. We
will be getting Enzo and Cass at the event.
Cass XL, yes.
Enzo and Cass XL, yes. That should be interesting, but I was not just looking forward to seeing the Godfather in an independent ring, because he is such a big WWE name, but seeing his Papa Shango, which I don't know the last time he has ever.
Yeah, I haven't seen him in Papa Shango in a long time.
Yeah, so that was going to be, I was more curious to see him in that gimmick, and I don't know if you ever saw the Godfather on Broken Skulls from like a month or two ago.
I did check it out, yes.
When he did say about the rebirth of Papa Shango before he ended up joining the Nation of Domination.
Yep.
It looked really cool. They wish they would have went that way.
Of course.
It looked like a 97th version of like Bray Wyatt.
That would have been cool.
It would have been cool. So, as we move on, it has been announced, not by WWE, but by many, that it will be announced soon by WWE, that WrestleMania this upcoming year in Dallas is going to be 2 nights. We saw WrestleMania last year in Tampa be 2 nights. And listen, for those of you on the internet, and there's lots of you, and I feel like I'm in the minority here, that say that this is a good idea and that you love this idea, I get it. I understand why you're looking at this. You're looking at it from this perspective. WrestleMania 35, really long, ended at 1 a.m. Nobody wants to watch a show or be in attendance for a show that long. I get it. WrestleMania this past year, 2 nights, it worked out. What's to hate about it? Seems like a great idea. But the problem is you're looking at it too short-sightedly. If you're WWE's perspective, you're looking at it from a money perspective, but let's look at it from a fan's perspective. Why you should like it as a fan. And let me tell you, you shouldn't like it as a fan. And here's why you shouldn't like it as a fan. Lots of reasons, as I alluded to at the beginning of the show. Lots of reasons why you shouldn't like this as a fan. 1, WrestleMania last year was 2 nights. But if you remember, there was nothing else going on. There was no Hall of Fame that you could attend. There was no independent wrestling shows there that weekend that you could attend that I knew of. I mean, there might have been something. There was no big time shows. There was no NXT TakeOver that you could attend outside of, I guess, a select few that could attend it in Orlando. There was no Raw you could attend. There was no SmackDown you could attend. Obviously, this upcoming year, the idea is that WrestleMania weekend is going to return to where it was and that you're going to be able to attend all these things. I understand that you can make your vacation as long as possible, but the typical person makes WrestleMania an extended weekend, a Thursday through a Monday. And I like Dallas. It's a great place. I'm not going there for 9 nights. I'm not literally wasting all the amount of time that I can take off from my work, and most other people are not as well, to go and watch WWE wrestling for like 9 nights in a row. Just not happening. Even people who go to the Super Bowl, they fly in, they get there Thursday, they leave on Monday. They're not getting there the following Monday.
No, it's
not doing that nonsense.
It's just a long weekend.
Yes, it's a long weekend.
That's how I've always spent my time in Dallas. It's a Thursday, you come home on a Monday.
Yes. So with that being said, with SmackDown on Friday, with WrestleMania then being Saturday and Sunday, there's really no time in that. And let's say you even stay for Raw. Raw's on Monday. When are you going to get the Hall of Fame? Well, I guess you're not. It's going to be on Tuesday for those who get there on Tuesday, which even the most hardcore wrestling fans, even the Brock Lesnar guys, they don't get there on Tuesday.
Here's what I'm just going to say with this. And I know we've mentioned it before on previous episodes. What they should do is on Saturday night, you do an NXT takeover.
Which is what they did in the past.
Which they've done in the past, yes. Saturday night, NXT takeover. Sunday night, you have WrestleMania. There doesn't need to be 2 nights of WrestleMania. You're right, 100%. It makes 0 sense. And I'm okay with NXT, though. I'm okay with NXT being the night before. That's fine. That's cool because, to me, yes, it's under the WWE umbrella, but it's different. It's a different, number one, it's different presentation. Number 2, it's different wrestlers, different storylines. It's not in the same bubble in my book.
And I understand people are talking that, WrestleMania is super long. It's 8 hours long. It's 7 hours long. It's too long for one event. You get there at 3 in the afternoon. You're there at 1 o'clock in the morning. I get that. But the answer to shortening WrestleMania is not making it 2 nights. Because here is the reason for that. And we've said this before. WrestleMania, and I made this analogy earlier today with somebody, I think, on Twitter. One baseball game can be 9 innings. It also can be 19 innings. But it can be 9 innings. 2 baseball games can't be any shorter than 18 innings. So what I'm saying is that WrestleMania now cannot be any shorter than 7 hours. Because when you are booking 2 nights and you are selling 2 tickets to 2 events, each event has to be an event length. So if for some reason this upcoming year's WrestleMania, WWE in February decides, you know what, we don't got enough matches to make this an 8-hour WrestleMania. Let's make it a 5-hour WrestleMania. It's too late. You can't do it. You got 2 nights. You got to fill 2 nights. So regardless, WrestleMania now is going to be 7 hours. I imagine this upcoming year, there'll be the return of the kickoff show matches. So there'll be an hour kickoff and a 3-hour show. So essentially 8 hours. And now that's the minimum. 8 hours is now the minimum. In New York City, 8 hours was long. But if a couple of those matches got scrapped, no one would complain. If you go to an event now that they're separated into 2 ticketed events, if your WrestleMania night is 1.5 hours and the other WrestleMania night's 3 hours, you're going to complain because you don't have tickets to that event.
Here's the problem solver for all problem solvers. So NXT TakeOver, for one, does 2.5, 3 hours typical length. So here's how I do this. So we have our core 4 pay-per-views. You have your Royal Rumble, you have your WrestleMania, you have your SummerSlam, and you have your Survivor Series, one of my personal favorites. So those core 4, let's do it like this. It's not hard. Core 4, 4-hour shows. The rest of the pay-per-view should not be any longer than 3. Simple as that. Problem solved. That's all you need.
But like I said, and these are not just the only reasons.
You can't go long. Here's the thing. When you do an 8-hour show, you get to a point where you're like, all right, when's this thing going to be over?
This year's SummerSlam length was the length that WrestleMania should be. That is the perfect length. And here's what's great about
what was the actual length overall?
This year's SummerSlam?
Yeah.
It was just about 4 hours. I think it might have been a little over. I think it might have been 4 hours, 15 minutes, whatever.
That's fine. If it's right around that 4-hour mark, good. I think anything over like a little over 4 hours, like even if it's like 4:05 or something like that, I think is too long. Number 1 for an event, number 2 for television.
And here's the annoying thing, and we saw it this year, for example. What if, let's play devil's advocate, one night your main event is this year's SummerSlam. Let's say SummerSlam's 2 nights this year. Your main event is Sasha and Bianca. And let's say Becky Lynch isn't available to come save the day. So your main event is Sasha and Bianca, and what happens, and the main event ends up becoming Sasha and Carmella. Well, at SummerSlam this year, I could have cared less if Carmella and Sasha and Bianca ended up fighting because it was a long, major event. If one of the matches gets screwed up, it is what it is. If you go to a football game and a couple of the plays get screwed up, it's a whole game. It's the sum of the parts, okay? If I have tickets, though, to one night WrestleMania, and that is my main event, Carmella versus Bianca in a squash match or something like that, you can't save that. You can't just say, well, no, because I didn't buy for night 2. That's one of the major issues that they had last year is that they sold them in separate tickets. So if I buy tickets to this specific event and a match gets lost, you can't just say, well, a match gets lost, WrestleMania moves on. No. A match gets lost when you have one event is a much bigger deal than when it's the sum of a million parts. Like I said, if Bianca and Carmella ended up being a squash match, Sasha didn't show up, SummerSlam was still SummerSlam. But if literally the Roman and Bobby Lashley matches were on the next night's card and that was my main event, I would have been a little upset.
Now, speaking of Sasha Banks, any news on what's happening with her and why she wasn't there? Anything leaked out? I haven't seen anything.
I haven't seen anything. She's just been coming slow, battling some nagging injuries, I guess, and they're just being very precautious.
Well, yeah, she's had a lot of injuries since she's been in the business, so.
But for those of you who are like myself and you think that Raw is a little too long at 3 hours long, the answer is not 2-hour Raws every single week. Now, now let's make Raw 4 hours, but separate it into 2 hours.
Wrestling shows on TV should not be more than 2 hours.
So, yeah.
Simple as that.
Well, it shouldn't. So the answer isn't, well, then why don't we make 2 Raws, 2 hours apiece?
You know what you do?
No, you shorten the Raw.
You got it. 2 hour Raw, 2 hour SmackDown. You got it.
And I don't mean to belittle wrestling fans out there, but this is the reason why WWE will always be on top. Because you guys out there who love this 2-night WrestleMania are showing them that they're going to say, let's give you 12 hours of wrestling. And your answer is, can we at least have it in 6-hour increments? Not, hey, don't give us 12 hours of wrestling. You should be upset that they're making it 2 nights because that is their answer to not shortening WrestleMania, but keeping it long, but just making it more digestible. You should want them to just, because that's everyone's complaint. Well, WrestleMania is too long. I agree. It is too long. Well, then it needs to be 2 nights. No, it just needs to be shorter. That's the answer. The answer is WrestleMania itself needs to be 1 night and shorter. Not, okay, we're going to get 12 hours, so let's make it 2 nights. And again, now it's going to be 8 hours, guaranteed. It's going to be an 8-hour show, guaranteed. You're going to see all sorts of people on the card. They probably don't deserve to be on the card because they have to make it that long. For some reason, if somebody gets injured, they can't shorten the show. They can't just say, oh, I guess we won't have a 7-hour WrestleMania this year. We'll only have 6. They can't do that. If I would have left WrestleMania 35 in New York City at midnight instead of 1 a.m., I would have not known the difference. But if I'm going to a 2-hour show and they cut 1 hour off of that show, I will know the difference. If I go to an 8-hour show and they cut 1 hour off the show, I won't. But now you're having 2 3-hour shows. If you try to cut any of those down to 90 minutes, people are going to notice. Next year, it's at AT&T Stadium in Dallas, which is already probably a pretty tough place to fill. You're expecting 100,000 people. And again, you're going to expect that 2 nights in a row. That's going to be a tough task.
And well, speaking of event times and whatnot, I have to ask you before we get into the card itself. Mm-hmm. So what do we think of AEW's upcoming pay-per-view? You think that's going to be what lengthwise? What do you think?
So we're moving into AEW All Out. And if you have any more, if you want to follow me on Twitter, I can go on and give you more reasons why WrestleMania should not be 2 nights. One final thing is you're a fan here. The parking I noticed last time I went to WrestleMania started at $50 at AT&T Stadium. Yeah. Do you think they're going to give it to you for $25 a night? Or do you think they're just going to charge you $50 twice?
Get you $50 twice.
They're going to get you $50 twice. That's what Tampa did last year. I obviously know how to park, but for the regular person who pays the price, it was Tampa Bay Buccaneers $40 parking twice. Not once, because it was an event split in half, just like the tickets. It wasn't $100 for an upper deck seat, split in half for $50 a night. No, it was $100 a night. As we move on to AEW All Out, I think it's going to be, what does it start at 8 o'clock? Imagine, a 3.5-hour show.
Yeah, I think it's going to run up to about close to midnight.
So as we move into AEW All Out, anything obviously sticking out to you? I will say one thing sticking out to me, and that's kind of what we talk about with these debuts of these guys like Daniel Bryan coming in and the return of some wrestlers is, how do you book all these people?
Battle Royals.
Well, I mean, that's an answer. That's an easy answer. But I mean, how do you book, how are you going to justifiably give CM Punk, Daniel Bryan, Jon Moxley, and all and Bray Wyatt compelling storylines and give them all the main event level status that they deserve? And the reason I say this is because look at Jon Moxley. He's down the match in a singles match against Kojima. He's kind of a little forgotten about on this card because, we got CM Punk and, we got Chris Jericho. We even had Paul White. Remember when Paul White, again, we bring in the Big Show. This guy was a main event WWE guy. How are they booking him? He's, according to right now, the 3rd match on the card. Not saying that that's bad for a Paul White situation, but this is the problems that AEW is going to see down the line.
Here's the issue, too. He's wrestling QT Marshall, and I don't like QT Marshall. I think his work is awful. Why do you put Paul White in a situation with a guy who is just not good? I don't think he's over. I don't think people care about QT Marshall.
I think AEW is giving these guys better matches. A good example is Pac versus Andrade should be a really good match.
That'll be
but
solid.
The problem is they bring these guys over. I hope these guys come over aren't expecting to be any higher on the card than they were in WWE. Because you just keep bringing these guys over and making such a big deal.
Look at Miro. Miro and Kingston. That's going to be a good match.
Miro and Kingston. But again, Miro is in the middle of the card, just like he would have been in WWE. Andrade is probably lower in the card than he would have been in WWE.
But at least Miro's a champion.
FTR, obviously, we know some of the little injuries and stuff they've been dealing with, but as of right now, they are not on the card, or at least on the main card that I can see. So it's just things like that you got to look at and go, how are we going to fit? Daniel Bryan isn't on this card. I imagine when Daniel Bryan comes in here, someone else is going to have to be slid down the line.
Well, here's the thing. Here's how I think they book Daniel Bryan. I think what happens is he debuts, and I'm going to say Kenny Omega is going to win that match versus Christian Cage. And I think after when Kenny's celebrating, you're gonna hear Daniel Bryan's music play, and you're gonna see him come out. Well, as Bryan Danielson, of course.
So, as Bryan Danielson, but you just got to question. Do you see, so not questioning the roster, getting to the actual card itself. I mean, obviously, I see CM Punk winning this match. Maybe not, though, actually, because, again, that's kind of the MO of CM Punk, trying to give back. And, maybe that could be something you could do here. That could be a little
That's
swerve.
the thing with CM Punk. You're right. Like, he gives back, so it gives wrestling fans enough juice to say he might just give back to the business. So it's not 100% in doubt.
Yes. Kenny Omega, do you see him defending the title, or you see Christian Cage taking his Impact title and now his AEW title?
Kenny's winning the match, and I think you're going to set up a feud with Bryan Danielson.
And Chris Jericho, MJF, that's another one to look at. Obviously, the final match for Chris Jericho and MJF. It says here on the Wikipedia match card, if Jericho loses, he must join WWE. That is not an official. That is one of those Wikipedia. But either way, he has to quote unquote leave AEW.
Yeah, he can't wrestle again. Yeah.
So yeah, I imagine MJF's going to win. I imagine Chris Jericho is going to leave for long enough for them to forget that he ever said that, so we can come back maybe down the line and do some one-offs. But yeah, I imagine MJF's going to win this match.
Yeah, well, yeah, I think he's going to win the match. I think, because Jericho is going on tour with Fozzy, so Fozzy tour coming up soon, so stay tuned for that. I think that's going to lead to an MJF victory.
But yeah, I'm looking forward to Pac and Andrade, Miro and Eddie Kingston. Those should be good matches. I won't be able to be watching. I won't be watching All Out live. I will be at a concert. I'll be seeing Alanis Morissette in Saratoga Springs. So I'll be watching that live. That is a live thing I'm going to. Now, if I was home and Alanis Morissette was playing a concert on television, I would probably be watching All Out on pay-per-view.
Yes.
Because, I'm not all into that. Or let's say the New York Giants were playing a preseason football game.
Oh, here we go. Oh, here comes the dig. Yeah.
One question, though, and this is, I could probably bring this up every week because I have different scenarios.
Yes.
We talked about this last week, him picking a Dallas Cowboys preseason game over SummerSlam.
Which I watched 8 hours later.
So you're a Boston Red Sox fan, right?
Yes.
So let's put this scenario out there. This is one I thought of. Red Sox, it's October. They're in Game 6 of the American League Championship Series on a Sunday night, and the Cowboys are playing it's Week 5 of a Sunday Night Football game. They're on at the same time. You can only watch one. Which one are you watching?
Dallas Cowboys.
Over a playoff game.
Yes, I already said this the last time you asked this. Cowboys go over for any television or entertainment purposes. Cowboys go over everybody. I don't even care if it's a preseason game. Dallas Cowboys, for me, that's my personal favorite team out of all favorite teams.
I did, there was only one scenario, I think a couple years ago, I had to do that. I didn't have to do it, but I mean, the Blue Jays were playing a playoff game. I had the Blue Jays on the big TV with the sound, and then I had, on my phone, I had the Giants were playing a Sunday night game against the Eagles, or it might have been the Cowboys. And I had that, on my phone, but not even turned on, just looking at the score. But because it's the playoffs, I mean, obviously I'm a bigger baseball fan overall.
Oh, yeah, I was going to say, you're a bigger baseball fan than I am. When
it comes to football, I like the Giants. If I'm home, I will watch them. I'll even try to go to games. I try to go to one game a year. But if somebody's like, hey, I got tickets to a wrestling show, I mean, I can say I'll just look at the score.
I mean, for me, it's always it's Cowboys. It's Cowboys over it all. It doesn't matter what sport, entertainment, concert, whatever, wrestling show. Cowboys.
I was pretty excited this year. I just noticed that the New York Giants put out their roster, and I recognized 8 names. I'd heard of 8 names before.
Wow, I'm impressed.
Yeah, I know. I've heard of 8 names. I got to get ready for fantasy football. We're doing our draft in my league. Yes, I play fantasy football. I don't play it like you people.
Whoa, wait a second. Jared's in a fantasy league? What? I didn't know this.
I pick all New York Giants players because I like to watch them, and then Tom Brady is my quarterback every year, and that's my go-to.
Wow, how many teams are in your league?
10.
Nice. Yeah, I'm in a handful myself.
You pick Tom Brady because you take it until it's broken. That's what I always say. He's never let me down. People always try to pick these new sexy people I've never heard of. The latest number 1 draft picks. Just stick with my Tom Brady. Stick with my my New York Giants.
And jokingly, of course, you'll probably be picking Tom Brady in 2040 at this point.
I hope so. I hope he keeps playing as good. And I hope Ric Flair in 2040 is still kicking around in the world of wrestling. And if he is, we'll be talking about it. So we'll be giving you all we know about All Out from last week and so much more, as this has been another edition of the Heel of the Face podcast. For Brandon, I'm Jared. We will talk to you next week.